Talk a little Browns. Our Browns topic today is brought to us by Epicor. Every team knows the value of hard work, of taking pride in what you build, and practicing every detail to get the best results. But no one player, no matter how amazing, can do it all alone. Working together makes getting the win easier. At Epicor, the all-stars are the hardworking manufacturers and distributors who create and deliver the things we all need, from aerospace to electrical to medical devices, from small businesses with big dreams to growing enterprises with global visions. We'll equip you with the right tools to move forward, think ahead, and lead the way. Because as the clock ticks down, you need to make the most out of every hardworking minute. Easier doesn't cut corners. Easier finds the lane. Discover your success at easierwithepicor.com. That is easierwithepicor.com.
We just pulled off the rarely done 50% of a Cleveland show not about the Browns. How about that?
I know.
I don't
Proud
know
of
if
us,
it's good
guys.
or bad,
Refreshing.
but I enjoyed it.
The question with the Browns today
And now it ends.
is, as we look ahead to 2025, we know the main guys on this team, the Miles, the Judys, the quarterbacks. We've talked about them at length. But, Bo, we'll start with you. Who's
Yes.
the most underrated player on the Browns heading into the 2025 season?
We're starting with me. I didn't even know that was a topic. I thought we were talking about the undrafted.
Well, we're
free
going to do
agents.
two Browns topics, but this was the first one.
I've got.
All right, Jay,
the
let
right
Let me
answer
go
if
third
you
so I
want
should
it.
think about that.
Yeah,
for a second.
and for the record, G was supposed to come in today. We mentioned it earlier. He
Yeah.
came out sick. So, Bo, you are excused from not being prepared.
Thank you.
Because you were a late caller.
Yeah.
Jay, let's start
Yeah,
with you.
that's true. It's Corey Bojorquez, and it's not even close. I mean, it's a joke.
That's sad, but
It's a joke.
maybe true.
A buddy of mine, and we're still very close friends, his name's Scott Turner. He was the punter for Ohio State. Do you remember when Ohio State went to Penn State, the year that Penn State joined the Big Ten, and got rinsed 63-7?
Yeah, vaguely, yeah.
My buddy Scott Turner was the player of the game, the Buckeye player of the game. He was their punter. He had like 13 punts and averaged like 50 yards a punt. Corey Bojorquez is among the best punters in the NFL. He led the NFL in punts last year, and it was he had way more punts than the average NFL team did because the Browns had the worst offense. He also was very, very wow. You had that ready to go.
Look at that.
We have all of our season stats still from
Well
we'll
done.
make them all.
Well done. I didn't think that you. I almost texted you and said, "Hey, can you build a screen for Bojorquez?"
I got you. Don't worry.
Well
We're
done.
Head of the game.
Good
Thank you.
producing, Mike. Yeah, I think he's the most underrated Brown. He's among the best punters in the league. He's always way up the list on punts inside the 20. As bad as the Browns were last year, if they had had an average punter, they would have had the number 1 overall pick. I honestly think he made a difference in 2 of their wins by flipping field position, by having big punts. So that's my answer, Corey Bojorquez.
Jason.
I actually, I went with Isaiah McGuire only because
It's a good one.
he's a guy that we don't really ever talk about. Obviously plays edge opposite Miles. PFF loves him, and I've had my disputes with PFF in the past.
Well, they're dead to me. You know that.
But the fact that he is known as a good run stopper, he's just a guy that we don't really ever talk about. And plus, this team isn't very good, so it's hard to come up with somebody who's the most underrated.
I'm like been thinking about it for 5 minutes here. I can't think of any. There's nobody in my mind.
I
But go
went
ahead.
through position by position,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, I'm missing somebody.
Yeah,
and I went
right.
to kicker, and I'm like, no. And then I said, oh, God, it's our punter.
I think McGuire could have we talked about Alex Wright before getting
Yeah.
hurt early in the year.
Yeah.
That is one. I mean, everyone's going to talk about the quarterbacks. That's another camp battle I'm kind of curious to see, only because I thought McGuire did have some good moments last year, and Wright has shown promise in the past. And with the way that this line has been rebuilt the last couple of years now with some of these draft picks alongside Miles, I'm curious to see what kind of production they get out of that spot. So for lack of a ton of great options, give me Isaiah McGuire.
All right. I'll be honest. I don't think there's any great choices, but my answer is going to shock you. I'm going to say Jerome Ford.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
here's
that does-
why.
I am shocked.
He
Right.
just took a $2 million pay cut.
Not that I think Jerome Ford is very good, but I think Jerome Ford is a decent, and he might end up being the third back. I don't know what it's going to look like with it. He's considering the talent around him. He's been okay the last 2 years. He's not special. He doesn't do anything amazing, but he's not terrible either. Like he's an adequate NFL player, and I think we talk about him as if he's a complete zero. And I don't think he's a complete zero.
Well, the problem with Jerome is you never want to be the guy to follow the guy.
Right.
And he has to replace Nick Chubb.
Right.
In the minds and hearts of Cleveland.
But he's not a horrible back.
He's not Nick Chubb.
Right. Of course, yeah.
He's not
Which
horrible.
makes him look worse than he
But
probably is.
it feels like, and I could be wrong on this, he's got like 4 or 5 great runs in his career.
Yeah.
And the rest is very, 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 very average. And those 4 or 5 runs make the overall numbers look a little bit better than what
I
they
would
really
say
are.
the rest is
Agreed,
below
but
average.
see, I think people talk about him as if he's a zero, like not even roster worthy, and I don't see it that way.
I think he's he's a league average running back.
Which I think he's underrated because I think people think he's worse than that. I'm not saying he's better than league
I
average.
Can you
he's-
throw a screen up again? I want to study his.
What else do I got,
want his
Jason? There's
stats?
nobody
Yeah,
else who's underrated. I thought about maybe Grant Delpit, but he didn't have a good year this past year.
Now imagine if we did the overrated question. We could go on. We could name 8 guys.
That's a whole different topic for a day
Yeah.
where we have
Yeah,
not
it
a
is.
game one to recap. My answer was
What not pictured
Jerome
there
Ford is going to be
his-
your Jed Wills.
Is his yards per carry.
you want his yards per carry? Jerome Ford this
It's
season,
pretty high.
5.4 yards per carry.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, that's good. You say take away his biggest runs, but you take any player's biggest
No, yeah,
runs.
I understand, but
Yeah.
there's like 2 or 3 runs a year
5
that
yards
are like
per carry.
60 or
You're
70
right.
yards.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe even more so than Bajorquez. 5.4 yards per carry?
I mean, he's a serviceable back. Again, I'm not saying he's great. Far from it.
That's what I said about Jed Wills. He's an average left tackle.
I think Jerome Ford's a better running back than Jedrick Wills is a left tackle.
What if Jed's back on this team?
I'm
as
making this a
backup?
poll right
He's
now.
still- I'm serious.
Well, no one else is
As a backup.
breaking their necks to sign him.
Could he play guard? Could he be a swing guy?
don't know.
Tackle and guard?
God, can you imagine from a first-round draft pick?
That tells
To
you
can
how
he play guard?
it tells you how little the league thinks about him.
Yeah.
Because he was a first-round pick 5 years ago.
I know.
And nobody wants him.
Unheard of. You know, one other thing that you might be able to player you might be able to mention is DeJuan Jones. If DeJuan Jones can get on the field and stay on the field and be healthy,
Right. But I think we all feel that way. I think we all think he's good when he's healthy. So I don't
yeah,
think
but
he's
I
underrated.
think our general thought of him is
he can't.
out of shape
Yes.
and a big letdown from what we saw from him the first year.
Sure.
So I think, like your Ford comparison, we're comparing him to Nick. That's a high bar,
Right.
so he looks less pretty.
Yeah.
Same thing with DeJuan. If we compare him to what he gave us his freshman or his rookie season,
Yeah.
compared to what our lasting image in our mind is the guy is slow, out of shape, overweight, and wasn't very effective.
Yeah.
So this is a guy that could be a candidate for, not that they ever give it to a tackle, but he could be one of these comeback player of the year guys if he comes back.
Look at this. We're finding guys. We're finding underrated players.
Silver linings all
I
over
had
the
Jack
place.
Conklin as
We're the Cleveland mediocres.
I had Jack Conklin as my guy just because last year he played. And
Yeah, but,
I know
yeah,
injuries,
again-
but I think we all had this level of, is Jack Conklin that good? We're not sure. He's always hurt. We don't remember.
Yeah.
He actually was arguably their best offensive lineman, and frankly, it wasn't that close last
That's a
year.
good call, Mike.
Yeah.
Because I thought he was kind of done before last year. We were all pissed, certainly myself included, that they signed him. They gave him a new contract.
Right, yeah.
And he was one of the few guys on the team that was worth their
Jeez,
contract.
now we're the
last year.
Cleveland underrateds. Got underrated
this
guys
team.
everywhere.
It's unbelievable.
Look at us. Look at us.
Can we make a
Little
case for
positivity.
Njoku being underrated? No, never mind.
Cedric Tillman?
Yeah, no.
No.
Let's not.
All right.
Joe
Deshaun
Flacco?
Watson,
Joe Flacco?
underrated.
Yeah. No.
All right.